that we were hearing you speaking about. It's the contrary, isn't it? Anyway, on a more positive note, Professor, you have the floor.
Okay. Thank you very much. I first want to extend my special thanks to Emily, and I see friends again. I'm very much happy. It's an honor and pleasure to share my views. Okay. Do you hear it? And also many thanks to INSS to invite me for this important gathering at the time of the deal that is very debatable in the Middle East. Going through the previous speakers' caricatures, I didn't see Turkey going nuclear because in few years back, Turkey's name was mentioned as along with Egypt that in case of Iran might go nuclear or near nuclear or threshold or whatever, close to nuclear. We have heard that Turkey and Egypt might follow the suit, which here I am today to share my viewpoints that she will not unless with the condition that, as you can imagine, the people who are in the room, that extended deterrence of U.S., meaning NATO, that was given to her back in 1952 onwards, is getting very crucial. And though we are all, our focuses are mainly concentrated on Iran today in this room, Turkey's concentration has been varied. It's more on its southern border, which is Syria, the civil war, and its effects on Turkey, both soft and hard security issues that is coming from her borders, from southern borders. Anyway, but this doesn't mean that Iran's situation is not important from the standpoint of Turkey's security concerns. It's very clear enough that she wouldn't prefer her to see her neighbor, namely Tehran, as being a nuclear state as a neighbor. And because this would definitely affect negatively the current, I would say not current, but previous, let's say, the strategic balance between the two countries. And so the hope in Ankara, I would say that this deal will somehow achieve to become a successful one. And Iran, at the end of the deal, we don't know yet how it will come out. She would become a responsible international actor in terms of NBT liabilities that she has breached over back in the past. And then we would have a better, stable neighborhood to the east. This is the hope, of course, but the realities on the ground that we have heard this morning up till now and what we are observing is not that cheerful and hopeful. If we may go through the three levels, first maybe I should go very briefly the turbulent region of ours, namely the Middle East. What has changed since I was here in 2011? And I was much more hopeful. I went through my presentation. It was very much constructively based and prepared, and I was even shocked. You know, it's the mood and the mindset has totally changed what we went through in this crazy region, I would say. And so things have changed. You all know that first the Arab Spring. We were very much hopeful. I was one of the proponents of Arab Spring that latently, but it was there. But since then, I have become to notice that Barry Boson was right, unfortunately. This region was always a conflict region. Seems to be born for a while to be a conflict region. We're not just dealing with traditional old frozen conflicts. We have now new ones coming and piling up side by side. For instance, we have met this, unfortunately, the post-Arab Spring situation, which brought counter-revolutions in certain countries. as well as it has increased the probability of having new weakening states, if not we will call failed or failing states, which is making negative spoil oil effects in the neighboring states, which Turkey is witnessing it this time. It has been 4 years now that what's happening in Syria and as well as in Iraq. I'm not just talking about hard security issues. I'm also talking about soft security issues, which has a humanitarian side as well, meaning the influx of refugees that is coming to our borders, not only to Turkey as well as to via Mediterranean. We are witnessing that they are going through the Italy and beyond. So this is another tragic issue that has to be observed. And also the geopolitical rivalry that is going on in the last 4 years in the Middle East, especially between Iran and Saudi Arabia. Via proxies, the wars has been waged not by national armies now, for instance, in Syria and Iraq, even to a certain extent, by proxies. So it's hard to differentiate who is waging war with whom. The alliances are in flux. It's changing all the time. You can't even determine yourself to one position and make a strategy. You align with someone, the next day there's another alliance that is being formed. So it's quite a complex situation that we are going through. And plus, if you go beyond the region, the division among the P5 countries at the National Security Council of UN is not promising, not only in terms of arms control issues, as well as regional issues like the position, the division among the P5, especially if it's a matter of, for instance, Syria, even Iraq, even in Yemen, is also a reality on the ground. And the worst of all, new neighbors around us, is the rise of new non-state actors, which is the existence of, under the new names and brands, these jihadist groups that are being with us. We are neighboring as a Turkey with Daesh, for instance, or ISIS, whatever you may call it. So they are our new neighbors. And also, what else? These are the security-related issues that we are witnessing at the moment. And, okay, yes, one more thing. We have the existence of foreign fighters coming from all over the world and going through Turkey, that is being set. It's trying to be stopped at this moment via the cooperation with NATO allies. And the fight, these foreign fighters is a serious issue that has to be dealt in the neighborhood of ours, mainly in this part of the world, in the Middle East. And having all these problems, what we are missing, what we don't have is the lacking of a comprehensive regional security forum or a dialogue, which has been an issue for some time, and it is still an issue that has to be dealt with. And there is only one few exception in terms of arms control achievement that I might say. It's the OPCW's achievement that has been realized by dismantling the Syrian chemical arsenal. But this is not also without problems, as we are witnessing the use of chlor gas and sarin by both regime, the Syrian regime, as well as some rebel groups, is an evidence by the UN documents, as you have all witnessed. And about NPT, we have seen it. We have went through the failures of it in detail this morning. So there is not much promising news about the future of NPT. And I don't know how the non-nuclear half states will be reassured about the future of being in NPT. We have heard different options that has been put on the table, but the credibility of NPT is at stake, I may say. So this is not a good news from the future of or perspective of our control in regard to Middle East. And also, there is also one problem. In times of difficulty, we had the tools of using CBMs, confidence building measures, but in this case, whom are we going to deal with? There are, for instance, in the Middle East, states that are weakened and torn apart. For instance, whom are we going to deal and negotiate it with if it's a case of Syria? I know that in Arab leagues the seat has been changed, but will the opposition, and who is the opposition, I don't know. It's also debatable, as you know. So whom are you going to negotiate with in the future of arms control that you may have in hand, in your mind? And Yemen is another case. There are two governments, and there is the Al-Qaeda, and there is Daesh existence there. So, and Libya, as you know, two governments, and again, jihadist groups existence there. And then Iraq, torn apart for some time, and I don't know what the future will bring. It's up to your imagination. I leave it to you. And also, there is another thing. What we are thinking about arms control, we have mentioned through this Middle East free zone, the debates and how far we have come and where we have stopped or stalled. And when we are dealing with WMD free zone, of course, there's the problem of, apart from the nukes and chemical and biological arsenals, there's the ballistic missiles existence, as well as the rockets. And the inventory is increasing. And so this is a concern for Turkey as well. As you know, though we are concentrating on the deal, the Iranian nuclear deal, we know that ballistic missiles capacity is not going to be part of this deal. So the range is covering not my part of Istanbul, but Ankara. So I don't know if it's a relieving story. For some, maybe for some not. And also, again, not to mention about Syria's Scots existence is there, and we know that they have been used, and so it's good that we have Patrice temporarily stationed along the southern border of ours, and so I don't know whether they are good enough to prevent any incoming Scud missiles towards Adana, Antalya, thanks God it will not happen. But we know that the downing of jet has been realized at the beginning of this Syrian civil war, and the shellings are continuing spurtedly. So this is another reality and a concern for Turkey, and this is not a good news for the future prospects of having an arms control somehow for the Middle East, whether with Middle East free zone or whatever it would be. And also, some other problematic issue is about, again, this is not a new story, is Middle East countries. So far, their record of non-proliferation is not a promising one. You all know in this distinguished group of people are aware of this. So this is also a concern, and might be a concern not only for the Turkey and for the all members of the Middle East region. And in this regard, I may say that Turkey has a exceptional position. She has a very transparent and clear non-proliferation record. And I won't go into the details, but if you may ask, I may answer in Q&A section. She's a member of NPT regime, the treaty. And also, she said that she was in favor of Middle East free zone, that if it could come into reality sometime. And also, about the question of Iran is a bit different story from the perspective of Turkey, I would say. And But all in all, I may say in general that Turkey gives importance to arms control regimes. That's for sure, because there's another specialty and peculiarity about Turkey being in the Middle East, but she's also a member of NATO. So that is something that differentiates Turkey from other states in the region. And also her manner towards the arms control regimes differs a little bit in this sense, though she gives support to NPT regime and she has signed other arms control regimes. She has become, for instance, a member of NPT, but with the condition that she has become, after a member in 1952, a member of NATO, and she was guaranteed a positive security assurance by the US as well as NATO. So this is something that has to be bear in mind. And so, as it has been mentioned this morning, the three pillars of the NPT regime, she gives quite importance to the Article 4, what has given, provided to non-nuclear have states. And it is very important from Turkey's stance, not due to the security matters, but especially from the energy-wise concerns. Nowadays, Turkey can only able to provide its energy, just 30% of energy indigenously. So she's importing especially 70% from basically its natural gas from Russia, Iran, and the rest, LLG from Algeria and so on. So this is very problematic, and so she gives quite importance that Article 4 of NPT, as being a member, should be somehow preserved. This right has to be, this inalienable right has to be preserved. But she also, as I said, with regard to Iranian case, she often mentions that this Article 4 has to be somehow preserved, but with the condition that you attach and keep up with your liabilities under the agreement that impose on you, which is lacking with the Iranian case, and that is why we are dealing with this issue maybe more than 10 years now. And what would I say a bit more? How many minutes do I have?
You have no longer.
No longer, finished. In one, I must have a few minutes, right? I haven't checked, anyway.
It's in the eye of the beholder.
Okay. What I would say, I must come to the Iranian issue. Yes, that was important, but again makes Turkey's stand a bit different from what has been discussed in this room. She preferred the diplomatic stance from the very beginning, in contrast to the coercive diplomacy with its own legitimations and beliefs. But we may, of course, discuss and debate whether it's successful or not, since we're talking about Iranians' breakout capacity for about 3 months long, and how this could be reversed to a year-long time, and how this issue can be somehow solved is a matter of concern for the whole international community, not only for Turkey or the Middle East countries. But as I said, if Iran becomes a nuclear country, as it's been already said here that it is not clear yet, she might be standing near threshold, perhaps, since threshold concept is quite debatable. Of course, it's a concern for Turkey, but as I said today, she has more prior concerns rather than dealing with this issue, and she has tried once in 2010 to deal with the issue, and it was rejected. I'm referring the Brazilian and Turkish initiative swap deal. So she's observing the developments that is taking place, P5+1 and with Tehran, so as an observer status, and but the basic lines of her non-proliferation and NPT viewpoints are not changed. They are there. But I would say if a nuclear Iran might become a reality, this would have an impact on Turkey. But the sanctuary is NATO. And it is the U.S. NATO extended deterrence. But that is also not a guaranteed thing. Article 5 does not automatically work. And also, what is interesting, we have experienced Patriot stationing twice. It was a bit delayed. It took a debate among the allies, but this time it was quick. They have came and stationed, and even a year time they have been extended to be on our territories. But we do lack capabilities in terms of Patriots, meaning this kind of missiles. We don't have it at our inventories. We try to have them, but we still couldn't have them. You know, all these debates about Chinese or which model we would go. But for the time being, we are relying on NATO. And we think that this is my personal viewpoint. It is not in line with arms control issue in terms of a promising issue, but deterrence that they bring is a needed issue nowadays, especially from Turkish standpoint. If Iran is going to be a nuclear one, that's a reality on the ground. But again, I'm saying that this extended deterrence that is being given to Turkey is not perfectly working. Not only at missiles, defense missiles system, it's also at the conventional level, it's not deterring. The incoming shellings, downing the jets of Turkey, and things like that. So this reminds me of the situation of South Korea and North Korea case, where this deterrence has thought about at the nuclear level, but not the conventional level. So this is also a matter of concern. And other than that, I might say that despite to the articles that has been published previously in like 3 years ago, whether Turkey would go nuclear if Iran becomes a nuclear country, I don't think that she would, as long as this extended deterrence is strengthened and continued. Continuity has to be guaranteed, that's for sure. And going unilaterally nuclear is out of the question, I might say. But from arms control perspective, I'm so sorry that there's not much to be said from my perspective. Thank you.